Here's the craziest paradox you'll hear all week. Women spent decades demanding men be softer. Open up. Be vulnerable. Cry more. Don't be so aggressive. And guess what? Men listened. Now those same women are on TikTok crying. Where did all the real men go? They're not gone. You just told them to disappear. This is the era where a man can't win. Be strong, you're toxic. Be gentle, you're boring. Take the lead, you're controlling. Step back, you're weak. It's a no-win game, and everyone's miserable. Men are walking on eggshells, afraid to breathe wrong. Women are frustrated, craving the spark they killed themselves. The dating scene's a graveyard of nice guys, and everyone's pretending they're fine. But they're not. Here's the truth nobody wants to admit. It's not that there are no real men left. It's that masculinity's been reprogrammed, punished, mocked, and medicated out of existence. Not by accident, but by design. And now, we're watching the fallout in relationships, in schools, in workplaces, everywhere. You wanted men who could cry. Now, you're crying because they do. So the question isn't, where did the real men go? The real question is, what did we do to them? Stay with me by the end of this. You'll see exactly how we built the problem we're all complaining about. So how did we get here? How did an entire generation of strong, capable men turn into guys afraid to speak their minds? It didn't happen overnight. It was engineered over decades. For the last 50 years, every system that used to forge a masculinity has been dismantled piece by piece. Schools, media, workplaces. They all started preaching the same message. Traditional masculinity is dangerous, and it worked. It starts young. A boy who can't sit still for 8 hours isn't a problem to solve, he's just being a boy. But instead of understanding that, we label him hyperactive, medicate him, and teach him to suppress his energy. If he gets too competitive, we tell him he's being toxic. If he fights, he's violent. If he wins, he needs to apologize for making others feel bad. By middle school, he's learned one thing: being masculine comes with punishment. So he hides it. He learns to trade his natural confidence for compliance, his instinct for approval. We don't raise men anymore. We raise people who are scared to be disliked. And the result? A generation of polite, hesitant, risk-averse men who think leadership is oppression and attraction is harassment. Men who overthink every word, every move, every glance. They don't live boldly, they tiptoe through life, terrified of offending anyone. Here's the twist. This isn't evolution. It's de-evolution. We didn't create emotionally intelligent men. We created emotionally neutered ones. Not strength balanced by empathy, but weakness disguised as virtue. We told men to be softer, and they listened. We told them to show emotion, and they did, only to be rejected for it. We told them to let women lead, and now those same women complain they can't find a man who takes charge. That's not irony. That's the logical consequence of decades of mixed messages. Walk into any school today and you'll see it. Boys can't play tag, too aggressive. They can't draw superheroes or pretend swords, too violent. They can't express dominance or competitiveness without being labeled problematic. Meanwhile, their female classmates are told they can do anything, be anything, lead everything. The message is clear: feminine energy is celebrated, masculine energy is controlled. By the time those boys grow up, they're emotionally cautious, sexually uncertain, and socially lost. They think being a good man means never upsetting anyone, so they date carefully, text politely, and ask permission for everything, including attraction itself. And then they wonder why there's no chemistry, no spark, no polarity left. Because you can't light a fire after you've drowned all the fuel. You can't have passion without tension, or desire without danger. We've tried to turn men into something safer and ended up with something weaker. Masculinity wasn't destroyed in one blow. It was eroded over time, rule by rule, lecture by lecture, until confidence became arrogance, strength became threat, and leadership became oppression. Now we're living with the results. Relationships with no polarity, workplaces with no direction, and a culture that mistakes comfort for progress. But society doesn't move forward through comfort. It moves through courage. And the one thing we've taught men to fear most is being courageous, So now we get to the real mess: modern dating, the battlefield where all this social reprogramming explodes. Men are confused, women are frustrated, and no one knows who's supposed to do what anymore. It's not love that's dead, it's polarity. You see, attraction lives in tension. Masculine energy moves forward. Feminine energy receives, responds, and flows. That balance used to be natural, now it's controversial. Because when men were told to soften, women lost the spark that made them feel alive. It's not that they don't want equality, they just don't want sameness. And that's the mistake modern culture keeps making. Not equality, but neutrality. And neutrality kills desire every time. Let me give you the picture. A guy takes a woman on a date. He's polite, careful, sensitive, checking every word like it's a legal document. He splits the bill to show respect. He asks if it's okay to kiss her, then asks again if she's sure. He's the perfect modern man, and she feels nothing. Why? Because there's no polarity, no tension, no edge. Her biology doesn't respond to safety, it responds to strength. Her instincts crave leadership, decisiveness, direction, not domination, but certainty. That's why the same woman who complains about her toxic ex still thinks about him at night. He was confident, assertive, unpredictable. He made her feel something: primal danger mixed with desire. She hated how he treated her, but she loved how she felt around him. And now, she's dating a man who does everything right, yet can't make her feel anything at all. This is the modern dating paradox. Women say they want a man who listens, supports, and opens up emotionally, and they mean it. But their biology isn't moved by niceness alone. It's moved by polarity, masculine charge meeting feminine energy. So when a man becomes too accommodating, he kills the very attraction he's trying to earn. He confuses being safe with being desirable. He tries to impress her with empathy, when what she craves is direction. And here's the brutal truth. Women don't lose interest because men are kind. They lose interest because men stop being men. Not in a macho but chest-beating way, but in a grounded, confident, unapologetic way. But you can't blame men entirely. They've been punished for decades for displaying the same traits women secretly crave. If they lead, they're controlling. If they take initiative, they're pushy. If they show interest, they're creepy. So they play it safe, and safety never turned anyone on. Dating apps made this worse. Profiles read like job interviews. Women list demands 6 feet tall, 6 figures, emotionally available. Men list disclaimers. I'm a feminist. I respect boundaries. I'm not like other guys. It's the mating market of apologies. Everyone's negotiating desire like a business contract. The result: a few men who still embrace masculine energy get all the attention, while the rest fade into the friend zone. And women wonder why they keep chasing the same type of man who won't commit. It's not because they love bad behavior. It's because those men still carry the raw, unapologetic masculine presence that modern society tried to erase. We built this mess ourselves by demonizing masculine energy. We didn't make men better, we made them invisible. By teaching women to want safety over polarity, we didn't empower them, we numbed them. And now, everyone's playing roles they don't believe in. Men act like emotional support animals. Women act like bosses at home and wonder why they feel exhausted instead of cherished. Nobody's leading, nobody's following, everyone's managing. But relationships aren't management systems, they're energetic dances. One leads, one follows, and both thrive. That's not oppression, that's balance. We've confused equality with sameness, and the cost has been chemistry. We thought we were building harmony, but we ended up building boredom. The dating market is proof. Women swipe right on less than 5% of men, the few who still radiate strength and direction. The rest invisible, because no amount of sensitivity replaces the spark of polarity. And until we admit that truth, we'll keep pretending modern dating is about connection when it's really about confusion. The chaos didn't stop with dating. It bled into every corner of society, from classrooms to boardrooms, from families to nations. Because when you confuse men about their role, you confuse the entire structure built around them. See, masculinity was never just about muscles or dominance. It was about direction, the willingness to take responsibility when things fall apart. It was the invisible backbone of civilization, the energy that built bridges, fought wars, and protected families. And when that energy gets labeled toxic, everything depending on it starts to rot. Look at the modern workplace. It used to reward results, competition, and clear hierarchy. Now it's obsessed with feelings, consensus, and endless meetings that solve nothing. Managers are afraid to lead because leadership now sounds like aggression. Decisions take weeks because no one wants to offend anyone. And productivity dies in a room full of people waiting for group approval. This isn't progress, it's paralysis. We replaced accountability with affirmation and called it empathy. We swapped competition for comfort and called it culture. But organizations don't thrive on comfort. They thrive on clarity. Someone has to lead, and someone has to follow. That's not oppression. That's structure. And here's the irony. The very people who fought to dismantle traditional masculinity are now begging for its stability back. They want safety, but they don't want protectors. They want providers, but they don't want hierarchy. They want confidence, but they don't want authority. That's not empowerment, that's selective dependency. It's the same story everywhere. In schools, young boys are punished for energy, ambition, and risk-taking, the same traits that built the modern world. In media, fathers are portrayed as clueless, bumbling side characters, while women are shown doing it all. In politics, we celebrate soft power and forget that strength, not sensitivity, keeps civilizations from collapsing. We've turned masculine virtues into cultural sins. Discipline is called control. Assertiveness is called aggression. Authority is called oppression. And as we've stripped away masculine structure, we've replaced it with emotional chaos. That's why society feels unstable, because it's built on a foundation that no longer believes in anchors. Men have been told to sit down, shut up, and feel more, but nobody taught them how to stand up again. So they retreat. They stop trying, stop leading, stop building. They disappear into gaming, porn, or quiet resignation, the only spaces left where they can still feel in control. People mock that as weakness. But it's not weakness, it's withdrawal. Not because men stopped caring, but because the system stopped valuing what they offer. And what's the result? Families without fathers. Classrooms without discipline. Companies without courage. We created a generation that wants the benefits of masculine stability without the responsibility it requires. Here's the truth: society cannot survive without polarity, not just between men and women, but between order and emotion, structure and compassion, risk and safety. We need both, but we've spent decades demonizing one half of that equation. You can see the cracks everywhere. Marriage rates are plummeting. Birth rates are below replacement. Young people are choosing loneliness over partnership, apathy over ambition. because nobody knows what they're supposed to be anymore. Men are afraid to lead, and women are exhausted from leading alone. We've created a world where everyone's empowered, but no one's fulfilled. This isn't the future we were promised. We traded strength for sensitivity and got instability instead. We traded protection for politeness and got chaos. We built a culture that celebrates feelings over function, and now we wonder why nothing works. Because civilization isn't built on comfort. It's built on accountability. And accountability requires hierarchy, direction, and leadership, all things we've spent decades tearing down. But here's the twist. This collapse isn't permanent. You can't erase human nature. You can only suppress it for a while. Masculine energy doesn't disappear. It redirects. And right now, it's starting to reemerge, raw and unapologetic, through a generation of men done with being ashamed of who they are. The question isn't whether masculinity will return. It's how much damage we'll have to repair when it does. Because every time a man remembers his strength, a family stabilizes. Every time a leader stops apologizing, an organization starts to function. Every time a father stands tall again, a generation of boys remembers what manhood looks like. We can't fix the dating crisis, the workplace confusion, or the cultural collapse until we stop pretending that masculinity is optional. It's not. It's essential. And the longer we deny that, the more broken everything becomes. So if the world feels off balance, it's not your imagination. It's the sound of a civilization trying to function without its spine. We've built a world that doesn't know what love is anymore. Not because people stopped wanting it, but because they no longer understand what fuels it. It's not compatibility apps can measure, it's polarity. And we've spent decades trying to erase the very thing that makes attraction possible. Look around. Men are lonely. Women are exhausted. Everyone's playing defense in relationships that feel more like negotiations than connection. We don't date to love anymore. We date to avoid getting hurt. Men, afraid of rejection, overthink every move. They text politely, ask permission for attraction, and confuse kindness with chemistry. They've been told to never offend, never lead, never risk. And when they finally meet someone, they show up like emotional interns eager to please, terrified to lead. Women, on the other hand, carry the weight of having it all. They lead at work, lead at home, and lead in relationships, then wonder why they feel so tired. They say they want a man who's gentle, but they crave one who's grounded. They say they want equality, but deep down, they long for polarity, because biology doesn't read hashtags, it reads energy. So, the cycle begins. Women date men they think they should want safe, sensitive, emotionally available, but their bodies don't respond to comfort. They respond to tension. They crave direction, not compliance. They want to relax into their feminine, but can't, because the man beside them refuses to stand in his masculine. Then comes the resentment. She feels unseen, unattracted, unled. He feels unappreciated, unwanted, unloved. They start blaming each other for what culture trained them to destroy. He withdraws. She hardens. He stops trying. She stops trusting. Two people standing side by side, but emotionally miles apart. That's why you hear the same complaints from both sides. Men say women are impossible to please. Women say men have no backbone. But the truth is, both are reacting to the same broken dynamic. Men are scared to lead, and women are tired of leading. Nobody's happy, because nobody's in their natural role anymore. This is the great paradox of modern love. We thought freedom meant sameness, but sameness killed the spark. We thought progress meant balance, but balance without polarity is just boredom. We created relationships that look equal on paper, but feel empty in practice. And here's the cruel twist. The men who still act like men, confident, decisive, unapologetic, are the ones women chase the hardest. Not because they like bad behavior, but because masculine energy is rare now. Scarcity creates desire, and the few men who still embody it hold all the leverage. That's why dating today feels brutal. Masculine men have endless options and no reason to commit. Feminized men have no options and nothing to offer. Women bounce between the two. The alpha who excites them but won't stay, and the nice guy who stays but doesn't excite them. Everyone ends up disillusioned, scrolling through screens, pretending they're empowered. And the saddest part, none of this was malicious. It started with good intentions, equality, safety, sensitivity, but in trying to protect people from discomfort, we sterilized desire. We forgot that attraction isn't built in harmony, it's built in difference. Not sameness, but polarity. Not safety, but spark. Now, women are rediscovering that spark in the very men they were told to avoid. The ones who take risks, lead with conviction, and don't need permission to be themselves. They call it toxic, but their biology calls it magnetic. Because nature doesn't care about politics, it only responds to energy. So what happens next? We repeat the loop. Women date soft men, get bored, chase strong men, get hurt, then retreat into independence again. Men get rejected, become bitter, withdraw, then complain there are no good women left. Round and round we go, connection without chemistry, equality without intimacy. We built a culture where everyone's free, but nobody's fulfilled, where love is transactional, attraction is political, and passion is suspicious. We call this progress, but it feels like paralysis, because you can't negotiate attraction, and you can't legislate desire. Here's the truth. Love doesn't need new rules, it needs natural ones. Men and women are meant to complement each other, not compete. When masculine and feminine are aligned, everything flows. When they're confused, everything fractures. The cycle won't end until we stop trying to fix human nature and start understanding it. Until men remember that leadership isn't oppression, it's direction. And women remember that surrender isn't weakness, it's trust. Because the problem isn't that modern love is broken. It's that we've built it on a lie that men and women are the same. They're not. And thank God for that. Every time a system collapses, people look for something new. But sometimes, what we need isn't new at all. It's what we abandoned. Because before the confusion, before the dating chaos, there was a structure that actually worked. Not perfect, but functional. Not controlling, but clear. That old blueprint the one modern culture mocked had balance built into it. Men led, women nurtured. Men provided direction and protection. Women created warmth and connection. It wasn't about power, it was about polarity. Each role complemented the other, like two halves of the same current. When that polarity was intact, relationships didn't feel like competition. They felt like partnership. Families had stability. Children had guidance. Communities had order. Everyone knew what they were contributing, and that gave life meaning. The masculine role wasn't just about dominance or money. It was about responsibility, the willingness to carry the burden when things got heavy. A man's value wasn't in how much he felt, but in how much he endured. He wasn't expected to be flawless, only dependable. His leadership gave women something rare: safety, both physical and emotional. And women, in turn, carried a power of their own, not through control, but through influence. Their energy softened the hard edges of the masculine. Their empathy humanized men's strength. They built homes, raised children, and grounded communities in ways no economy or government ever could. They didn't compete with men, they completed them. That's the balance we lost. Not because it was outdated, but because we stopped understanding it. We mistook equality for sameness and ended up dismantling the very dynamics that held everything together. See, tradition wasn't oppression, it was order. It gave men a mission and women a sense of security. It gave children clarity, a model to imitate, a standard to grow into. When we erased those roles, we didn't liberate people, we unanchored them. Now, both genders are drifting. Men have no mission, women have no rest, children have no examples. And society calls this freedom. But freedom without structure isn't liberation, it's confusion. The truth is that the traditional system worked because it aligned with nature, not against it. It respected biological differences instead of pretending they don't exist. Masculinity and femininity weren't enemies. They were complementary forces designed to pull each other higher. Men pushed the world forward. Women made that world worth living in. When that polarity flowed, relationships thrived. Men were respected for leading, and women were cherished for nurturing. There was gratitude, not resentment, desire, not distance, and yes, passion, not politics. People today hear traditional and think 1950s submission, but that's not the point. The goal isn't to go backward, it's to remember what worked and rebuild it for the modern world. We don't need to chain women to kitchens or silence their ambition. We just need to stop shaming men for leading and stop shaming women for wanting to follow a strong man. Because partnership isn't about power, it's about purpose, and purpose needs polarity. You can see glimpses of this even now. The happiest couples, regardless of how progressive they claim to be, naturally fall into polarity. One leads, one follows, one protects, one nurtures, one provides structure, the other provides softness. It's not inequality, it's synchronization. Even same-sex relationships reflect this truth. One energy leans masculine, the other feminine. It's not about gender, it's about balance. When both energies compete, chaos follows. When they harmonize, love flows. Modern culture calls that old-fashioned. But maybe old-fashioned isn't bad. Maybe it's timeless. Because truth doesn't expire, and biology doesn't negotiate, we can't build fulfilling relationships on politics or ideology. They're built on something older, primal respect between masculine and feminine. When a man leads with integrity and strength, the woman beside him naturally feels safe to soften. When a woman honors his direction instead of competing with it, he rises higher. That's not hierarchy, that's harmony. The traditional blueprint didn't limit people. It gave them direction. It said men, protect and provide. Women, nurture and connect. And together, build something that outlasts both of you. That's how families became legacies and how civilizations thrived. We forgot that balance, chasing progress that doesn't feel like progress at all, because no matter how advanced we become, relationships still run on the same ancient laws. Polarity, trust, respect, and purpose. The world doesn't need new genders, new labels, or new rules. It needs old truth with modern wisdom, not a return to the past, but a reconnection with what made the past work. Because when men remember their strength and women remember their grace, love stops being a war and becomes what it was always meant to be, a dance. If we know what was lost, the next question is simple. How do we rebuild it? How do men rise again in a world that punishes them for being who they are? The answer isn't outrage, it's ownership. Because waiting for the world to hand masculinity back is a waste of time. It's not coming. You have to take it back through action, discipline, and purpose. Masculinity isn't something society gives you. It's something you forge. It's built in the quiet hours of struggle, in the choices you make when no one's watching. It's not loud, but it's undeniable. It doesn't need validation. It creates results. For too long, men have been told that strength is dangerous, that dominance is oppressive, that leadership is outdated. But strength without integrity is danger. Strength with discipline is protection. Leadership without empathy is tyranny. Leadership with vision is legacy. It's not about going backward to some alpha fantasy. It's about remembering what real masculine energy looks like: calm, controlled, directional, unapologetic. If you're a man today, you're growing up in enemy territory. Every instinct that used to be rewarded is now questioned. You're told to be kind, but not confident. Vulnerable, but not assertive. Emotional, but not decisive. It's a mental tug-of-war, and it's breaking men from the inside out. The way out isn't rebellion for its own sake. It's alignment, rediscovering the version of yourself that's been buried under years of mixed messages. You don't need permission to be masculine. You just need purpose. Start small. Wake up early. Lift something heavy. Build something from scratch: a body, a business, a vision. Push yourself into discomfort until it becomes normal. Because masculinity doesn't grow in comfort. It grows in challenge. Find other men who are doing the same. Not the ones complaining online, but the ones creating, competing, and sharpening each other. Men become men through friction, through brotherhood, through testing, through respect earned, not given. We've lost those spaces, but we can build them again. Gyms, teams, projects, communities. They're the new temples of masculine rebirth. And here's the truth no one tells you. Masculinity isn't toxic when it's guided. It's sacred. It's the fire that keeps civilization warm. Without it, everything goes cold: families, societies, even love itself. Men who reject that fire don't become safe. They become invisible. So stop apologizing for what makes you strong. Stop asking for approval to lead. Start earning it by embodying it. The world respects men who move with conviction, not men who wait for consensus. If you lead with clarity, you'll polarize people. That's the point. Weak men want to be liked. Strong men want to be respected. And respect always comes from consistency, not comfort. Understand this: discipline is freedom. When you master yourself, you become untouchable. Society can shame you. Women can test you. Failure can hit you, but none of it breaks you. Because a man anchored in purpose doesn't bend with every cultural breeze. He becomes the storm that others navigate by. And if you want women to respond differently, you have to become different. Not performatively, not for validation, but because your energy dictates everything around you. The man who knows who he is doesn't need to chase. He attracts. He doesn't demand respect. He commands it by the way he moves. That's what the world is starving for: real masculine presence. Men who lead with calm certainty instead of anxiety. Men who protect without apology. Men who don't confuse emotion with weakness or compassion with surrender. Men who build, fix, fight, and love with the same relentless intensity. The feminine doesn't need you to be perfect. It needs you to be grounded. Because a man who stands firm gives the world something it's been missing: safety in chaos. That's why, when men rise, everyone benefits. Families stabilize. Communities strengthen. Society finds balance again. You don't need to shout about being masculine. You just need to live it quietly, consistently, every single day. The gym, the craft, the mission, the risk, that's where manhood is reborn. And once you live from that place, people feel it. They can't ignore it. Because true masculinity isn't spoken, it's experienced. So stop waiting for permission to lead, to build, to protect. No one's coming to save masculinity. It's on you, on every man who still believes strength isn't a flaw, but a duty. Because the world doesn't need more passive men. It needs men who know who they are and refuse to apologize for it. And the ones who remember that truth won't just rebuild themselves, they'll rebuild everything. We've spent decades fighting each other. Men blaming women, women blaming men. But the truth is simpler. We both lost balance. And balance is the thing that made love work. Families thrive, and society's strong. This isn't about going backward, it's about coming back to center. Because when men rise in strength, women rise in grace. When both stand in truth, the world steadies again. You can feel it, the shift, the awakening. Men are starting to remember who they are. Not bullies, not victims, but builders. They're trading comfort for challenge, distraction for discipline, and shame for strength. They're not waiting for permission anymore. They're creating purpose. And women are awakening too. After years of trying to do it all, they're realizing they were never meant to do it alone. They want to trust again, to rest again, to be led by men who lead with integrity, not ego. This isn't a war between masculine and feminine. It's a reunion, a return to polarity, to partnership, to what has always made us human. Because the truth is timeless, men and women were never meant to compete. They were meant to complete. The storm we're living through isn't the end. It's the cleansing before clarity. The dust will settle, and what rises after will be stronger, steadier, and real. So if you're a man, rise not to dominate, but to direct. If you're a woman, rest not to surrender, but to trust. And if you're listening to this, let it be a reminder the future isn't masculine or feminine, it's balanced. Because this isn't the death of connection, it's the rebirth of it. And maybe, just maybe, we're not losing each other. We're finally finding our way back. So take a breath. Take your side of the responsibility. And if this message hit you somewhere deep, share it. Because this conversation isn't about blame. It's about rebuilding. Not men versus women, but how we find our way back to each other.